It is my great joy to welcome you to this celebration service this morning. We appreciate so much you being here today. We welcome all of you. We welcome our guests. We certainly hope that no one feels like a visitor. We hope you feel at home. Let me remind you of one thing real quick about next Sunday. I would remind all of our students that we are doing blessing of the backpacks next Sunday at First Light and Salt and Light. And so we ask you to wear your backpack to church. And we will have you up with us, and we will bless the backpacks next Sunday morning. At this time, I'd like to ask Crystal Smith if she'll come and join me on the platform. Crystal became our church hostess in 2004. She was part-time in 2007, actually August the 20th. Today is her anniversary date. 2007, she became full-time church hostess and office assistant. Last June, you'll recall that she became full-time church secretary, and today is her 10-year anniversary as full-time employee of our church. We're real proud of Crystal and Tommy, and Ryan and Kaylee are here somewhere, I know, and Allie. We're so proud of this family. Crystal will receive $100 per year of full-time service as an anniversary gift, but we wanted to recognize her in this service, so will you express your appreciation to Crystal this morning? Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Pam McKeithen, who will come and do an official greeting and welcome to Tonya Garrison. Pam?
Good morning. I'm here because you chose me to serve on the committee, the search committee for our Minister of Children and Christian Education. And our chair of that committee, Andy Green, could not be here this morning. And as vice chair, I'm here in Andy's place, but so happy to get a chance to officially welcome Tonya. She has been a part of us for a while, and you have come to know her and love her as we have as a committee. I served along with Rebecca Wilson, Susan Hunt, Chuck Harden, Greg Mays on this committee. And as we began our work, we realized that everything we did had to be bathed in prayer. And we were looking for the right person who could come and not only lead our children and disciple our children, but also lead us and disciple each of us in education. As a former educator, that was very important to me. And as we went through the process of examining many applications and looking, it became very apparent to us that God had already placed someone within this church who could fill those needs in a beautiful way. And I want to share with you the things that were most important to me, and then some things that many of you said to us as you recommended Tonya for this position. First of all, as a former educator, I wanted us to find someone, first of all, who loved God and loved His Word, and who loved God's people and God's children enough to disciple them so that this church, which was founded by a group of people that included my grandfather 95 years ago, could move forward and be a beacon in this community. I wanted that person, a person who would recognize that in children, the kingdom of God moves forward. And if a church does not disciple its children and its people, that church will not survive. That was in my heart. What you said about Tonya as you recommended her was she has a heart for every child. If you have watched her, if you have seen her with children, you have seen that. I've watched her face light up as children have come forward. I've seen her heart at work. You said she's creative, she's organized, she's ready. She does things that are appropriate for each age level. We saw her successfully lead her first VBS here, and she did a great job with that. Someone said her creativity is a gift from God, and she shares it willingly with us. And every child that she touches feels a connection to her. As a grandmother, it warmed my heart when I asked two that are kind of important to me. I said, "What is there about Miss Tonya that is so that you like best of all?" And one of them said, "Her Bible stories are great. And it's fun. She has fun activities." And the other one said, "She loves us all." And so, Tonya, we welcome you. Andy said the thing that impressed him most was that you chose us first. Come join me. I believe he meant to say, God led you to choose us. Thank you for choosing us.
Thank you. Then do you want me to bring is my speech later or now?
Later.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
introduce
I'm going to introduce my family. We have family here. Everybody knows Steve and Emily. I'm going to get them to stand up as I say. Husband Steve, daughter Emily, they're part of us all the time. And then we are fortunate to have Steve's parents, Annie and Joe Garrison. They spent the night with us last night. And we have our daughters, Savannah, and her husband is working. He's a police officer in Buncombe County, so he can't be here. But we have her son, Cooper, our grandson. Cooper, will you stand? And Savannah's holding Corey. Corey will be a year old at the end of this month. And then we have Lauren and her husband, Justin. And they spent the night with us too. So my parents will be here in October. They said they'll see you then. And our son Cameron is in Carnation, Washington. It was a little far to come. And so we'll miss both of them this week. Thank you.
Welcome to all of you. Now Brad Teague's going to come and offer an official welcome and greeting to Debbie Cox.
Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. It was my pleasure to chair the search committee for our youth, Director of Youth and Instructional Technology. And in doing that, I worked with outstanding folks, Kim Bridges, Lori Cudd, Allison Mays, Keith Hunt, and Wes Mays made up our committee. And let me tell you up front, you did an excellent job in selecting those folks. To watch them pour into this, very important work, was rewarding for me as a chairperson. And so, as Pam said, our focus from the beginning was that we wanted to listen to God in everything that we were doing. And long story short, we didn't know how difficult that was going to be, because as Bobby passed along the resumes and applications to me, he said, "There's an interesting one in there. You have one from India." And I said, "Okay." And I was guilty at that point of dismissing that, thinking, how in the world would we hire someone from India, to come to Forest City, North Carolina to lead our youth? And so as we went through the process, I could see on the committee's faces as we went through that this guy was pretty impressive on paper. But again, that question of how in the world are we going to, proceed with this? So as we went through all the applications and really poured in there and really tried to pray and listen to God's calling and God's hand in this, we felt led to interview this guy from India. And so we started the process, and kudos to Rutherford County Schools. Technology was something that I had actually been a part of Skype interviews as an educator. And so very few of the committee members had been a part of a Skype interview. They were familiar with Skype. And so as we went through that process, I explained it. And one late late evening, we were able to interview David Cox. And from the moment we met him, it was obvious that there was some connection. There was something going on here, that God was at work, even through the computer screen, which was amazing to us. And one of the committee members said, I can't remember who it was at that time, was, how appropriate that, the other half of this job description is instructional technology. And we're interviewing a guy halfway across the world via the use of technology. And so from that moment on, things just seemed to fall in place. However, and I'm ashamed to say it now, I was nervous. My faith was tested, because even as the committee, as we move forward with this process, we were 100% convinced that this is where, or this is what God was calling us to do, and who God was putting before us. I was nervous about all of you, because I know many of you still don't know what I'm talking about when I say Skype interview. Those of you who were here that evening were able to participate in that. And we had several committees, of course, the search committee, our staff committee, the deacons, the staff, and then all of you one Sunday evening were able to interact with David via Skype. And I think everyone who was able to engage in that process as a committee, as we fell in love with them, I think you did as well. And so it was obvious, and I was speaking to his parents this morning as we met them, never put limitations or boundaries around what God can do. And that's what's been so rewarding, is because as we went through this process, the way the timing lined up, David, bless his heart, would often get up at 4, 5, if Luke had not already sent the alarm that morning for them to get up. He would get up and interview with us or talk with us, just to make sure that, hey, everybody who wants to talk with you, do you mind being available? And so we were able to see his heart through this process. And whatever limitations there may have been through physical contact, this guy behind me put us at ease with just his genuine care and love for the Lord. And since then, his genuine and care and love for our youth. And if any of you have been privy to see him interact with those folks, you know exactly what I'm talking about. As an educator, there's one thing you cannot fool kids about. Kids know who care about them. Kids know who love them. And from the day he's walked in the door, I think all of these folks sitting to my right would agree that it's obvious that his heart is here in Florence. His heart are with these youth, and he loves them, as does his family. And so, again, thank you for trusting the committee in that we could pull this off using technology and calling someone to Forest City, North Carolina, who had never stepped on our beautiful campus. I had a conversation with Bobby, and I'll never forget this. We talked about how nervous maybe we were in calling someone that we had never met. And then I mentioned to him, I said, well, think about David and Katie. They're agreeing to come here and work with people they've never met. And so you talk about stepping out in faith. And I think this is the perfect picture of what God can do when you trust him and you love him and you're interacting with people who love God. And so this is 100% God from the day we started this process until now. The poor guy flew in on July the 7th. Came over to visit with me and Bobby on July the 8th for a tour, and his first official day was July the 9th. So to say he has hit the ground running is an understatement. But I can't tell you enough just how thrilled I am that we were able to make this happen, that God put this wonderful family here in Forest City, North Carolina. The Skype process, we kidded around, or would often joke around about that, and that the only thing different is that we've not been able to physically shake his hand or physically give him a hug. And so our last meeting, Tommy Wilson took care of that as he embraced the computer screen on our side and David embraced the computer screen on his, and they had their first virtual hug. So we were able to take care of that. But I know you've seen him in action, and it just warms my heart to see how much he loves these kids. So if you would please, again, welcome officially Mr. David Cox.
Thank you, Brad, and yeah, thanks for you guys. I was getting up early, but y'all were having to get or stay late, so I appreciate all the hard work and effort you guys put into that. And so it really is the Lord. It's incredible what the Lord can do. So I wanted to introduce my family. So we got a lot of people here today. We have Barry and Kathy Potter. This is Katie's parents. Well, I guess first I should introduce Katie. Katie, you want to stand up? Getting a little ahead of myself. And our son Luke is in the nursery. He's 10 months old. And then so we have Barry and Kathy Potter. That is Katie's parents. And then Katie's brother Derek and his wife Jen. And then on my side of the family, we have my mom and dad, Gary and Debbie Cox. And then we have my brother and his wife, Daniel and Garland Cox. And they have son Sullivan, who will be a year on Thursday. So him and Luke are no doubt in the nursery wrestling right now, giving the nursery workers a run for their money. So thank you guys.
And now I'd ask all the 4- and 5-year-olds and 1st and 2nd graders to join me on the steps. Sit right here. Just sit on the steps, facing me. Just have a seat. I do not bite, okay? I'm your friend. Hey, we're going to do name that staff member this morning. I want you to look behind you, the 3 ministers on our staff. I'm going to ask you some questions to see if you can answer them. Which one of our staff members leads the song? Who is the song leader? What's his name? Hey, he's been here 15 years and you don't know his name? Mr. Mike. All right. We're doing good. Mr. Scott. Okay, Mr. Scott. Which one of our staff members, look behind you, does children's worship? Miss Tonya. Which one's Miss Tonya? Okay. Which one of our staff members works with the youth that are sitting over here? Scott, I don't know. Okay, next question. Which one of our staff members is from the mountains of North Carolina? Does anybody know? Do you know? How'd you know that? Lucky guess. Tonya is from the mountains of North Carolina. Which one of our staff members is from Rutherford County? Wesley, do you know? You know where Rutherford County is? That's right here where we live. Scott is. Scott has always been in Rutherford County. Right, Scott? We got that right. Which one of our staff members is from South Carolina but came to us from what country? What country? India. Which one is that? What? David. Okay, 3 other questions. Which one of our staff members is going to do upward basketball and cheering this year? Got it? Which one of Miss Tanya is going to do upward basketball and cheering? Which one of our staff members plays the keyboard? Which one? Kendall? That guy right there. Yeah. That guy right there. Hey, one more. Which one of our staff members plays the drums and the guitar? Mr. Scott plays the drums. Hey, Scott. Mr. David. Okay, I tell you what we're going to do after today. We've learned a lot up here. Thank you for coming and joining me. This service is for Miss Tonya and for Mr. David, we're going to plan a special service for Mr. Scott, okay? You can go back to your seats. Go join your parents. This is Scott Haynes, okay?
I always wanted to be invisible.
We've asked Tonya and David to come and to share their vision of children's ministry and youth ministry with us this morning. And so we welcome Tonya at this time. Tonya?
I'm rarely nervous, but this morning I'm nervous. Do you know how many eyes are out there looking at me this morning? It's all good. It's all good. Let me share just a few tidbits about myself and my family to get us started. We are probably the only family you'll ever meet whose black lab goes next door and gets in the bathtub with our neighbor. We're also probably the only family you'll ever meet who has spun their child so fast and hard on a tire swing that they pass out. We like to do scavenger hunts at Christmas, and Pictionary is a favorite family fun night on New Year's. My family is God's favorite sitcom. We're not perfect. Many of the mistakes we've made are one-of-a-kind unique, just like we are. I have shot an assault rifle. I have jumped out of an airplane. And I am the 2016 Soapbox Derby champion of Rutherfordton. That was a plug, Doug. One thing left on my bucket list is I want to milk a cow. Maybe somebody can help me do that. And finally, not many people can say this and mean it, but I really do love my in-laws. And I love my job. And so before I get serious, I want to share one more thing to lead us into my vision. A couple had two little boys, ages 8 and 10, who were excessively mischievous. The two were always getting into trouble, and their parents could be confident that if any mischief had occurred in their town, their boys were somehow involved in some capacity. The parents were at their wits' end as to what to do about their son's behavior. The parents had heard that a pastor in town had been successful in disciplining children in the past, so they contacted him, and he agreed to give it his best shot. He asked to see the boys individually, so the 8-year-old met with him first. And the pastor sat the boy down, and sternly he asked, "Where is God?" And the boy made no response. And so the pastor repeated the question much sterner, "Where is God?" Again, the boy made no attempt to answer, so the pastor raised his voice, pointed his finger at the boy, and sternly said, "Where is God?" The little boy bolted out of the room, ran directly home, slammed himself into his closet. His older brother followed in and said, "What happened?" The younger brother replied, "We're in big trouble. God is missing, and they think we did it." Well, there's one thing for sure. God is not missing, and he's definitely not missing in the hearts and in the walls of Florence Baptist Church. Over the last few months, the children and I have been very busy. We've been to Bible school, we've been to camp, we've had pool parties, we have a new Gaga ball pit installed, and soon we'll be back on a regular basis as school starts back. We're enjoying each other, getting to know one another better, and building relationships. That's the key. My vision for the children of this church is very simple. I will help families plant a seed. I will cultivate and help harvest a beautiful crop of God-loving, God-living souls, and we will have fun doing it. The seed is planted when kids love and trust me and other leaders at the church, and they listen and learn about God. We cultivate by showing how to love like Christ, and we live like Christ. I teach the children that God is in all things and God is everywhere. I want them to start seeing God in everything that they do. When we are aware of his presence, our eyes can be open to his goodness. You know, we often fail to see the small things, see God in the small things, but when we open our eyes and see God in everything, we won't miss anything. Harvest comes when they'll accept Jesus as their personal Savior. This may be the biggest milestone to reach, but it doesn't stop there. We connect kids to God, lead them to Christ, and help them to continue to grow spiritually. I want the children of this church to be in love with their church and with their God. I and every teacher in the children's department are teaching biblical truths in fun and creative ways. They're excited about what they're learning, and I know many times they run home and share the lesson over with the family at home. I want the lessons to stick. I want the environment to be inviting. I want the children to transition over to our youth department equipped with a good foundation of Bible knowledge and understanding so that they can continue to soar. It's important to both David and I that there be no gaps from birth to adult. My job is to make sure that we nurture and tend to each individual baby, toddler, child, and then as I transition and hand them over to the youth group, that they turn out to be God-fearing, God-loving, God-serving adults. A few weeks ago, David and I were visiting with Cindy and Clarence Campbell at the hospital, and David asked Clarence if there was any advice that he could offer us. And Clarence, you said this: you can't do it alone. You need the Lord and anybody else that's willing to help you. That's good advice, Clarence, and it's probably the best advice I've ever had. This church is blessed beyond measure. We have a beautiful facility and lots of people willing to serve. David and I can't do our jobs alone. We need the Lord, and we need lots of prayers from the support of you, and we need hands-on help as well. This job is bigger than we are, and that's good, because that means that we have no choice but to give God all the glory and the credit for the work that we're going to do here. It takes all of us to do our part to make this church great. I want the children and their families to love this church. I want our children to see how we serve Christ by watching their families and other members of this church do just that. We serve Him. Love must be the reason for our service. When we're able to love the way we're supposed to, then God is manifested in us. Don't just serve out of duty. Some will plant the seeds, some will water it. Love is a service that never fails. I love my family. I love my church. I love the people of this church. I love Jesus Christ. He taught me to love, and He gave me the job of sharing that love with the children and the people of this church. He is with me in all that I do and ever will do. I love Florence Baptist Church. Thank you for hiring me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting my family. You all are a special bunch of people. Thank you.
All right, good morning. I wanted to start off this morning by just saying thank you. I want to start by saying thanks to the staff. We've been here about a month and a half, and it's just been an incredible joy to work with the staff here at Florence. They've been incredibly welcoming and supporting me in everything that I've done here, and we're just really grateful to the staff and your leadership in that. Next, I want to thank the church family as a whole. You guys have just welcomed us in. You've loved me and Katie and our son Luke. And I told Katie the other day, I feel like we've been members here for 20 years because everyone is just so loving and so kind. It truly is a special group of people here. So thank you guys for welcoming us in. And then also I'd like to thank Brad and Christy Teague. Throughout the whole interview process, Brad talked about it. It was a strange thing interviewing from India and having to jump through a lot more hurdles than other people. But Brad was our constant through that whole thing, and I just really want to say thank you. And the church is really lucky to have Brad. He's an incredible servant and humble guy, so thank you, Brad. I wanted to cast the vision for what I saw with my role. My role as youth minister and instructional technology facilitator. I'll speak to the IT part first. I want to present the church in a professional and inviting way to people online. So Bobby made the statement when I first got here, and I think it's true. Most people live online today. They live through social media and other places, different websites, and we need to be able to reach people in that arena. And so my goal moving forward and my vision for the IT is that we would have a place online that welcomes people in. We need to be out in the community. We need to be sharing the gospel and inviting people to church. But there's also a great audience we can reach through having an online presence. And so I'm working on different social media sites and our website to try and promote the church to people who we might not encounter on a day-to-day basis, and we can draw them in and show them the love of Christ here. The other way that I want to help out with the IT is to continue to keep our technology up to date. We've been incredibly blessed here at this church with just great technology and great facilities. And so I want to do everything I can to keep those up to date and to keep us moving forward in that area. So next to the role of youth minister, my goal and my vision is that every one of these kids would know Christ and that they would continue to grow in their relationship with Him. And I think we're going to accomplish that in 3 ways. So the first way is to have a Christ-centered youth ministry. I've talked to the kids with this. I've been able to do some Bible studies, some different things, and I think they'll tell you the thing I talk about most is the gospel of Jesus. And we've tried to keep that at the forefront of everything we do. And so a lot of youth ministries and a lot of different people try and focus on big events. They like to have a lot of fun and do different things. And I'm not opposed to those things. I think we had the lock-in. That was a lot of fun and a lot of excitement. But if Christ is not in any of those fun events, then what are we really trying to accomplish? So I want you to know from my side that everything that we do as a youth ministry will be centered around and focused on Christ and His gospel. And I wanted to read a passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5 that kind of speaks to that. It says, "For what we proclaim is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, with ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake." And so that's what I see my role, proclaiming Christ to these kids and being a servant to them and to this church. And so I think that's number one, how we're going to accomplish this goal of these youth knowing Christ and growing in their relationship with Him. Secondly, I want to support the parents. I can have great influence over these kids' lives through Sundays and Wednesday nights and other events that we have, but it's nothing compared to the influence that their parents have on their life. And so I want to be a resource and a tool for the parents. I've been working on developing some different things that we can get out to the parents so that they're equipped to be able to disciple their teenage kids. It's a tough time, and they're going through a lot of changes, and I want to be available to them. And also, I want to be a teammate to the parents. So whatever we're doing in youth group, I want to see that happening at home, and if there's something happening at home where they're discipling their kids, I want that to be a part of the youth group. I don't want there to be any tension between it. I want it to be a seamless thing to where the kids can come to youth group and also be discipled in their families in a way that honors God. And so I want to support the parents. And then finally, I want the youth to be contributing members of the church. Too often, we'll put the youth out somewhere and we keep them in a bubble away from the rest of the church. And we think that everything that we do towards the youth has to be cool and hip and all these things. But I think we do them a disservice if we try and do that. We need to infuse them into the congregation. And we need to teach them how to be a contributing member of a church. I remember when I graduated from high school and I left, I knew how to be in a youth group, but I didn't know what it meant to be a church member, what it meant to give up my time and serve. And so I want the kids or the youth to know what it means to be a member of a church. And so I think we can get them serving alongside others, whether it be greeting at the door and they're passing out bulletins, they can stand next to someone else who has been doing that and who's been serving the church, and they can grow in that way. Whether it be through Upward, they can help with that and be side by side with different adults and people in our church who can disciple them and let them grow, so that when they leave youth group, they aren't just equipped on how to be in a youth group, but they know how to be a member of a church. And they know that if they come back to Florence after college, that they have a place here. So those are the 3 things: a Christ-centered youth ministry, support for the parents, and youth who are contributing members of the church. Now, how do we accomplish this vision. We need your help. We need everybody in the church involved in helping with the youth. I don't know if you're sitting there today and you're thinking, I have nothing to offer to the youth. I've never worked with the youth before. I don't know what I can do. If Christ has changed your life, then you have something to say and you can speak into their life. If the Lord has done a work in your life, then you have something to share and you can disciple these youth in how to be a Christian, how to be a member of a church, and a contributing member of the community. So I want to welcome all of you. Please come and find me. I'm going to try and do my best to reach out to all of you and ask you to be involved in different ways with the youth. But please come and find me. You are all welcome to participate and be a part of these youth lives, because the church is an incredibly diverse place with people from all different walks of life and age groups. And the youth have a lot to learn from people from different places. And so I want you all to be able to come and to serve them in that way. So thank you.
Thank you, Tonya, and thank you, David. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Hugh Moore, who's sitting over here, and I were out visiting together, as we do many Tuesday afternoons. I had something on my heart, and I told Hugh that the staff committee was struggling about the shape of our staff, the direction to go. Hugh said to me that day as we rode along, Bobby, Florence Church built the Christian Growth Center as a place for children and youth, and we need to staff it accordingly. It was just as clear as day. He said we need to have a full-time children's minister and a full-time youth minister. I believe the staff committee met that night, and I came to that meeting and I shared that conversation, Hugh, and here we are today. What are my dreams for Tonya and for David? We've been meeting on a regular basis. They've heard this before, but you need to hear it from me. I have many, but I'll share 3 quickly. The first is this, that they walk and talk with God every day. That should be a given, right? And yet so often that gets pushed aside, even in ministry. Ministry is demanding. It is 24/7, folks. Ministry is every weekend and many of your nights. Besides that, Satan is working overtime to disrupt and distract. And so my word to Tonya and to David, first of all, is to walk and talk with God. Secondly, to spend time with your spouses and your families. And only when you've done that are you ready to minister. And that will be a constant balancing act for both of them. I would say to Steve and to Katie, there will be times when you will have to sacrifice these folks. They will be away from you. And I will say publicly, if you ever need counsel in this area, I can point you to the very best person for that counsel, and she's sitting right there. She is the consummate minister's wife, spouse. And so I would say to you, if you ever struggle, go talk to her, and you'll be fine. So the first thing, my first hope and dream is, and I'm not just saying this today, folks, I want to say it publicly and I mean it, that they walk and talk with God, that they grow in prayer and devotion. Secondly, my hope and dream for them is that they'll have a romance with ministry. I have a book in my study, copyright 1944, by Dr. Raymond Calkins, The Romance of the Ministry. And basically what he says, Tonya and David, fall in love with God, fall in love with the church, and as both of you have spoken, fall in love with these people, with these children and with these youth. Fall in love every single day. Most of you know I've done this for a long time, and I love what I do. And the reason I love what I do is because we love God and we love people. That's what it's all about. Thirdly, Tonya and David, I would challenge you today to be the very best you can be. Status quo and mediocre should never be on your lips or in your heart. God gave His best for us, and He expects our very best. David, I would say to you that ever since we entered the Christian Growth Center, I've dreamed of a day, I believe it will happen, we can have 75 to 100 of these young people over there on a regular basis. Tonya, I've dreamed of the day when we can have 100 to 150 babies, preschoolers, children in that building over there. And imagine if that were to happen, the parents, the families, the grandparents that this church would reach. Imagine the energy that would be in this place if that happens. Well, it can happen. Folks, we serve the Almighty God. We have the best people, the best resources, the best facilities, and now we have the very best in staff members. I challenge you to be your very best. So how do we conclude? Florence Church, it's time for all of us to pray, to offer our encouraging words. I would say this before I close my remarks. Be patient with them. Okay? You listening to me? You be patient. I told both of them the other day, I look back on my first 5 years of ministry, and I declare, I wonder how in the world I ever got out of Grover. Only by the grace of God and patient church folks do we stand up here and do what we do. You be patient with them. They're going to make mistakes. But I guarantee you, both of them are going to do great. So Florence Church, it's time to go to work. And you and I are part of the greatest work of all, the work of God. Amen? Amen. Tonya and David, will you join me, please? And will you take your bulletin and be a part of our reading? Dear friends, we gather today in the presence of God to recognize His call upon Tonya Garrison and David Cox to ministry positions at Florence Baptist Church. Not only have they been called, but they have been duly elected to these positions of service and leadership, and now stand ready to pledge their intent in fulfilling the duties entrusted to their care. As a church, let us likewise pledge our support to them with our prayers and encouraging words. Tonya and David, do you willingly accept the responsibilities of the positions to which you have been called, and do you promise to perform these duties as diligently and effectively as possible? Do you pledge to lead lives of prayer and devotion and set godly Christian examples for others to follow? Do you pledge to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself, and in so doing to promote the harmony and unity of Florence Baptist Church and to reach out to a hurting world with the love of Christ? Congregation, do we pledge to daily pray for Tonya and David that they may be effective in God's call upon their lives, the call that Florence Baptist Church has extended to them, and to fulfill the Lord's Great Commission? We do. Congratulations. God bless you. You may be seated.